I'm in Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina, walking the actual flight path that the aircraft of Orville and Wilbur Wright flew on December 17, 1903. And I can't think of a story that's more American. The first powered aircraft flight in world history took place right here 123 years ago. And it's just such an incredible story. These two bike mechanics, these brothers from Dayton, Ohio, who came out here to the sand dunes south of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, and figuring out how to control an aircraft, how to figure out lift, how to figure out the power, and ultimately how to put an engine and a man on an aircraft and fly. And today we'll be checking out this amazing national monument and learning a little bit more about that history. And here they have two buildings that are a reconstruction of the 1903 camp that the Wright brothers lived in here. And this is what their living quarters would have looked like. Pretty rudimentary, but it would have provided you some protection from the elements and I guess felt a little bit like home, I don't know. And right here they have this really nice marker dedicated to the first successful flight of an airplane, right here from this spot made by Orville Wright on December 17th, 1903, in a machine designed and built by Wilbur Wright and Orville Wright. And this tablet was erected in 1928, so only 25 years after the event. And it's neat, they have this rail here, as well as this little medallion on the ground. It says first flight, and that was placed on the 100th anniversary in 2003. And this is really neat. You actually get to essentially walk the flight path to see where the 4 flights of December 17th, 1903 ended. And as you can see from here, the first 3 flights were all pretty close. Here was the end of the first flight. It was only 12 seconds long, 120 feet, and Orville was the pilot. Right up here was the end of the second flight, which was also 12 seconds in length, 175 feet, and the pilot was Wilbur. And only a few steps away was the end of the third flight, about 15 seconds, 200 feet, where the pilot was Orville. And then if you look all the way down there, the end of this path, that was the end of the 4th flight on December 17th, 1903. Considerably more successful than the first 3 flights, although all 4 were a success in their own way, them being powered flights by man. And what I find really interesting is when they were done with the 4 flights of the day, when they were transporting their aircraft back towards, I believe, the hangar where they were storing it, the wind picked up and actually flipped it and damaged it, which is, I don't know, I think it's kind of interesting, but thankfully they were able to get those first 4 flights done. And I'll tell you, you don't realize how much further this 4th flight was until you have to walk it. And right here was the end of the 4th flight, which was about 59 seconds long. It went 852 feet, and it was the final flight on December 17th, 1903, and Wilbur was the pilot. And this is just so stinking cool to be standing here. And there you go, looking back down the flight path. You can't even really see the markers for the first 3 flights. But man, what a beautiful sight. And they chose this location because it had good, high sustained winds and soft sand to crash into for their gliders and then eventually their powered aircraft. So really intentionally selected site and really cool that it was preserved and we can come visit it today. Just over here, you can see the visitor center, which has a really nice museum and a good timeline that talks about the lives and the experiences of the Wright brothers. Way off in the distance there on the hill, you can see the National Monument, which we'll go see here shortly. And then they also have some other reconstructed buildings here, like we saw prior to walking down the flight path. So a really neat site, a good amount of stuff to see as well. And to be honest with you, this is probably the busiest national park site I've been to in a long time. There are a ton of people here, which is super neat though, because it shows that visitors are very interested in learning about what happened right here in the Kill Devil Hills, south of Kitty Hawk. All right, now I'm heading up the side of Big Kill Devil Hill to see the main monument here. And back in 1903, this was just a massive sand dune. Today you can see it's overgrown with grass and other things. But the Wright brothers used this hill a lot in 1901 and 1902 for their glider experiments. So they would have walked up the side of this hill thousands of times. And I just want to point out, if you look over here, way off in the distance, we can see the visitor center, and there's the main flight path where the powered aircraft flights took place on December 17th, 1903. So just seeing this whole area from up here really provides a good idea of why they chose this area. And again, with the sustained winds always coming through here, the soft sand, these were some of the primary reasons. It was also very, very secluded back in 1903. So they wouldn't have had a ton of crowds and looky-loos. They could just kind of focus on their experiments and not worry about people getting in their way. All right, and here we are at the monument. One thing real quick I just think is just really, really neat. You might be able to hear it. We got an aircraft flying overhead. So how incredible is it to be standing here where the Wright brothers flew a powered aircraft for the first time and have aircraft flying overhead? How appropriate. But this massive monument right here is 60 feet tall, and the height of the hill itself is about 90 feet above the surrounding terrain. So you're about 150 feet up at the top of the monument. And it was built of North Carolina granite from Mount Airy, and it was really a modern and futuristic look for the 1920s, with the cornerstone laid on December 17th, 1928. And in 1932, construction of this monument was finally completed. And what is really neat is Orville Wright attended both the cornerstone ceremony and the dedication. Goodness, look at that view. This is incredible. And you can almost imagine all the way back in 1903, the Wright brothers out here testing their gliders and their aircraft. And just over there, you can see the Atlantic Ocean as well. What an incredible sight. And the monument is just stunning. This might be one of the coolest national park sites. I've visited it in a long time. And just to think how historic the events that took place here are. The first aircraft with an engine on it to fly in world history right here in these hills is just remarkable. And I think it's cool how they have this set up so you can understand the progression of the Wright brothers' work and where they started and where they ultimately ended up, because it really is a remarkable story. And I know there's some good books written on what they went through and all the work that they did. And I recommend learning more about it because it is a truly American story and just one of fortitude and ingenuity and hard work and just genius. And it's just so cool to walk these hills and know what took place here. But that's going to be it for this one. Now it's on to the next journey.